Not the funny.
Oh man, good day all. This is Tequila29, along with Tevier Smoker.
Hello.
And welcome back again to the joke as well, where uncensored, offensive language don't give a crap what you think.
Yep. Night
So
intro. Mhm.
I'm glad you enjoy it. I had to think of something clever for it, to which it involved our super sons.
Yep. Mhm.
Well, I was hoping with today's one, we'll be firstly starting off with sort of like how the origin of the Joker's Wild website, as well as pretty much what led to the first live stream quite a while ago, came about. And I just showed Tevier before, sort of like one of the things that actually led to the creation of the Joker's Wild. Um, and it also links to something that I also reviewed on Rainbow Press and Comics. And I'm not too sure if the question's still up on the live stream for today, because I do ask a question is, have
How
you
do you
read
write long Joker Wired? Yep.
Robin the Joker's Wild? And I've read it two ways. The first being through the comics, which I managed to get a hold online, and the second was also through the trade paperback. So I got to enjoy it both ways, whilst collecting the Robin series. And I have my LCS to thank for that, especially in getting the hold of the trades, because it was really nice to read what actually Chuck Dixon did in that particular story.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't mind showing the review here, and how I rated the story. Of course, this centers around Tim Drake. As mentioned here, the story takes over 4 issues, to which the Joker has worked out a way to escape Arkham Asylum, through which he's prepared to do his evil deeds once again. Now, in this 4-issue story, especially the first couple of issues, you do actually learn that he uses the powers of the UN to get him out of jail. And this is sort of like Pray Tale, to which it does lead into the area of politics. It's not oversaturated in the story, but it's still a good story nonetheless. And this is sort of like how the idea of the Joker's Wild website, which now connects to the live stream, whatever else that shows up on the channel, has come about. As Tim Drake's comes to learn of the situation, returning back and forth between school. And I'll say one thing. Chuck Dixon made it work with the character, especially with him going back and forth between school, as well as going to the Batcave, trying to save the citizens of Gotham. He finds time to take on the Joker himself. Keeping this short, as the issue is covered by 4 comics, the story writing is quite amazing by Chuck Dixon, as it approaches how Tim Drake would handle the encounter of Joker in his solo comic run. It lets the reader know the risks that Tim Drake is under, whilst still
Entering his education in Gotham City.
Yep.
And earning more respect from Batman.
Yep. And I thought that was really good. I really enjoyed that. The story definitely is worth being in the vault. So this is one of the sections that I also have in Rainbow Press and Comics. And the vault is sort of like stories that are deemed worthy to sort of like go back and read again, as to how enjoyable it is, what the message is like, and how the writer develops the story. For the covers, I gave a 7.5 because as you look at the thumbnail, I actually used one of the covers for the thumbnail. The art was a 7.5, and for the story, I gave it an 8.5. So I will share the link to that in the text, in the chat section, so you can check it out for yourselves. And it's really nice to see something like an old story like that still having some good value in the times like this. Like, for example, we do have some stories these days which might come, for example, I'll mention one of our triggers of some sort. Brian Michael Bendis. As much as some of us don't like some of his mainstream, and that is true. There's a number of us that don't like his mainstream storytelling, myself included. But we might personally enjoy his indie storytelling.
And Spider-Man when that thing was good. The Superman gonna be God. Good crime. When Superman was God, fuck this book. Like, then get Superman that go with both cards in hand and be spectacle reporter, Page Magazine. Bullshit. Fuck that. It's quote is wrong. Also, Times is about the one more instant recognition Superman and the new guy in the Time Magazine. Joe Kato Polygon. Everybody cared about starting the series. Oh, you know crap! This quote is all bullshit, but they don't understand. This story is garbage and what goes on.
I agree. Even with The Man of Steel done by Brian Michael Bendis, to which we saw the beginning of everything fall apart.
Yeah.
Like, how the fuck did he friggin' fluke the first few issues? But once he came to the last 3 issues, it just went to crap. Like, it literally went to crap. The moment Jor-El came in, but there is probably some way to which, looking at it now, like, okay, looking where we've come with Bendis right now, there is probably a way to which some of these things could actually be fixed up, such as maybe this Jor-El, like the Jor-El that was originally taken by Dr. Manhattan, right? Maybe that one is still out there in the universe, but the one that came and visited Jor-El, Kal-El, in his apartment in Metropolis is a completely different Jor-El.
What? So another time travel story that not time to split character?
Well,
if more time travel bullshit.
Brian Michael Bendis brought in the story, he never brought up the fact in his like continuity type notes of what we see there. Hardly any of those.
Also, can still travel something out there alone.
Yeah, so in technicality, what if this is actually a Jor-El from another universe?
The multiverse.
The multiverse. Yeah. And in that, it would like sort of bring a little bit more sense of continuity to the story. And yes, we do know that he takes Lois as well as John Samuel Kent. But in the process, I like this idea that you've also brought up too, and that is, what if the John we got back isn't our John?
It's from Earth 3, the crime syndicate.
Yeah. So
our John got a shot out there alone.
Yeah. So, for example, what if this Jor-El is actually working for the crime syndicate?
That wouldn't make sense because we had Alpha of the evil.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, with this Jor-El being from the multiverse, now he could be anywhere from this multiverse, including the negative multiverse.
Wait, you mean the dark multiverse? But that would destroy.
Yes. The dark multiverse. And
Speaking of dark multiverse, we
else?
got a new character, Batwoman, who laughs.
Yeah. How else to upset a franchise around a beloved character? Good to see you, Michael Brent. How's it going, everyone? Are you excited for 2022? Are you guys going to watch any movies, play any video games? The multiverse is such a confusing concept. Yes, it is to some people, and I do agree because there are a lot of multiverses, but then we've got the introduction of the Omniverse, and of course that's probably going to have its own dark version too.
Also, we have a card coming in 2022, which is going to destroy the multiverse again.
Yes, so it's going to be quite interesting. So let's sort of use today as a way, looking at what we've already been given in regards to the past stories and somewhat new origin stories. Seeing that this is also discussing about the origin of this channel, or the origin of the Joker's World, for this channel, how would things be easier to go about sort of like letting the audience know in a much easier layman's terms, for example, to better understand the multiverse, to better understand the Omniverse, which is something that they're pressing for now. Do you think Disney has their own multiverse as well as Nintendo? I wouldn't be surprised if they do, actually. With the
Kingdom Hearts did the multiverse sort of with the own series. Just a sec. My family.
Yeah. Gotta love them.
Like I said, I can't stay long because I'm going to head to the pool.
Yeah.
So, anyway, okay.
No idea who this is, this Donald Howard. They must be a bot, but thank you for the views, little bot. Like with the multiverse and that, yes, for some readers it can actually be confusing, especially if you are, number one, new to the
concept. I gotta go. Sorry to end this short, but I got my family had to need me. So
all right, you take care, but thanks for dropping by and you
anytime,
enjoy
man.
Day.
If you're still on, I'll try to rejoin if I can.
All right,
rejoin.
All right, then.
See you next time. See ya.
Yep, you take care.
You too.
All right. Super Smash Brothers is sort of multiverse crossover and Kingdom Hearts. In that, I would somewhat agree with that. Even though I've not played Kingdom Hearts, I definitely agree because of how Kingdom Hearts, of what I've seen mainly in gameplay, does actually sort of like crossover in connection, sort of like a timeline. So it explores the area of timelines or different timelines, but from those timelines also comes different, or can somewhat bring forth its own version of the infinite, or the infinities. And it's interesting because even Star Wars has its own infinities before even Disney had its infinities. And the whole idea of the the Star Wars Infinities was sort of like exploring, and it was also considered an Elseworld story. Like each one was considered an Elseworld story. That with the Star Wars Infinities, that there were sort of like different approaches as to how things occurred. I believe in one there is one with Darth Vader training Leia. We've got another one with Darth Vader training Luke. So two completely different timelines. Well, it is supposed to be a crossover between Final Fantasy and Disney. That I totally agree with because of how the main characters are. Like Sora, for example, because you can definitely see he is actually from the Final Fantasy universe, but brought into a Disney universe and trying to help said characters there. Another thing too with the multiverse, if the audience was shown that this Jor-El, for example, like coming back to The Man of Steel run by Brian Michael Bendis, if the audience learned that this Jor-El was from the multiverse, even if it is the dark multiverse, maybe even working with the crime syndicate, and in return, we, instead of getting the John Samuel Kent we know, we get a John Kent from the crime syndicate universe that is not our John Samuel Kent, but in other words, he learns from the young John Samuel Kent that was basically abducted by the crime syndicate Jor-El, or the person who's working with the crime syndicate Jor-El. They could still bring back a young, de-aged John Samuel Kent. In other words, that option is technically still open to DC Universe, or for DC Comics in the DC Universe to bring back in. Not only that, those of us who enjoy the Super Sons, and I mean it, those of us who enjoy the Super Sons, and I know there's quite a number of us in the comic book reader community. I know Tevye is one. I know Cape Joel is another. Of course, Englentine Loves Comics is another. And the list continues. Like, there's a list of other YouTube channels that also enjoy the Super Sons. And we could get what was absolutely great quality storytelling once again by Peter J. Tomasi. And I must admit, the way how Peter J. Tomasi did that storytelling, even with Patrick Gleason, even with Jorge Jimenez, even with Art Tibert, Carlo Barbieri, who also worked on another, and also Jorge Corona, Max Reiner. So there's quite a bit to that list. Like, there's seriously quite a number of people to that list. And it's really been good. Even though we might not have enjoyed what happened in Future State, which has basically become a cheap man's version of Dan Didio's 5G, and carrying over into somewhat the Infinite Frontier. Not all of it so far, but that's not to say that everything has been completely put out on the table for the readers to see. A number of things too with like presently with Infinite Frontier, some of the best stuff that I've personally enjoyed has been the Robin run. I know I'm not the only one enjoying that, and I'm glad I'm not the only one enjoying that. I still dislike the first issue. The Flash, CW, and Spider-Man also explore the multiverse. Indeed, they do. Indeed, they do, Michael Brent. And also on the topic of, or back to the multiverse once again. What is it? We have a Suicide Squad story, which is teaming up with the Teen Titans Academy. Something I dropped at around issue 4, like literally. And I'm seriously glad I dropped it because of, the Red X BS. That is the thing that really killed the series. It's one of the reasons that I no longer pick it up through my LCS. They literally killed the series with the writer, centering everything around Red X. Didn't really leave anything from the future state behind, but just jumped straight into the Red X nonsense. And because of that, it lost my interest. It really lost my interest. And they should have just kept the character a mystery and just kept it to the anime, not having to bring it really into the comics. On top of that, they probably also got the wrong writer on the topic of it as well. Like someone who was unable to keep the mystery really good with said character. And the thing is, this was sort of like brought up in each and every issue of what I read on the topic of Red X. Like, couldn't you just leave the Red X thing for a couple of issues and then come back to it later on? Like, if they had have stretched it out, for example, okay, maybe use the first issue to talk about the topic of Red X, then not have it return to about, say, maybe issue 5. So instead of going like first issue, second issue, third issue, fourth issue, fifth issue, all the way up to 12th issue, list continues, you're going to bore the audience. And I'm one of the audience you're bored. Another thing too is that I have also been reading the Aquaman The Becoming. Of what I've read of that so far, like getting into the uncensored territory, the first issues that I've read of it so far have actually been pretty good. And I understand that there are some people who don't enjoy it, and that's fine. If you don't enjoy it, you don't enjoy it. It's not for me to change your decision. And in it, like one of the things that I was almost expecting in the second issue to happen because of who was writing the story is that that the writer was going to have Jackson Hyde end up meeting with Davey again in issue 2. Didn't happen. He really caught my attention, and I'm glad it didn't happen. So I really like that happened in the story. And who knows, maybe that character might be revisited again in a later issue. So in that, he actually did right with the character, as not to sort of like drive it down the audience's throat. But where he's doing well in one area, he's also falling in another. And I think one of the areas that he's sort of falling, if I remember, with it being the same writer, all right, let's go to DC Comics. I think it's coming out this week, isn't it? Oh, no. It would probably be coming out next week. We've got Nightwing. No, that's last week. All right. Yes. This week we do have Aquaman the Becoming, issue 4. Let me get a share screen up. And yeah, by Brandon Thomas, who is also working on the present Teen Titans run. Or the Teen Titans Academy run. All right. Future State Aquaman, he wrote on that. Where are we? I'm sure he was on the Teen Titans. Okay. Maybe I was wrong on that one. Welcome again to another bot to the stream that doesn't want to contribute anything of value. We appreciate you for helping this live stream get views. Oh, he's also working on Aquaman, Green Arrow, Deep Target. Okay, so who is working on Teen Titans Academy? It's not Brandon Thomas. All right, I'll leave that. Okay, so I got the writer on that incorrect. That's my fault. That's my error. But at least it's uncensored because it's the truth. But the fact that they are sort of like bringing in the character of Red X more into the comic, I think has actually devalued the opinions or devalued the people who actually originally liked the character in the animated series. And through there, you can see that the sales have probably gone down. And it's not very enjoyable. And that's why I ended up eventually leaving that series. So, of course, they tried to have a go of bringing in a origin story for Red X in the Teen Titans Academy. And some people like it, others don't. That's fine. You don't like it, you don't like it. And you're not forced to like it. If the story happens to improve later on, okay, maybe I might start to pick up the series again. But until then, it's not on my list. With some of the things of Brian Michael Bendis, as the topic of Brian Michael Bendis did come up earlier, one of the things that I have personally enjoyed has been, for example, his Powers run. I really enjoy Powers. I've read the first volume to the last volume. There is also meant to be another. You really should play Kingdom Hearts because the characters are incredible and they have flaws they have to overcome. Well, you know what, Michael Brent? That makes for great storytelling. And sure enough, even in the Brian Michael Bendis Powers run, give or take, there are a couple of volumes that I didn't personally like of his. The rest of the volumes were pretty good. I will definitely add that. The rest of the volumes to the series were pretty good after a certain volume. The first volume I enjoyed. The second volume was alright. Once the third volume came up, it really started losing me, and same with the fourth. But it was actually the fifth volume of the series that actually grabbed my attention to Brian Michael Bendis' Powers run. And it was called Powers Anarchy. And as I was reading through that volume, because in technicality, that was my first volume of Powers that I had actually picked up to read, I quite enjoyed it. I liked the story. I felt the passion behind the writer. You could see the passion behind the characters. And that's what led me to picking up the previous volumes before that. And then eventually the volumes after that. But I will say one thing. For a series like that, and also eventually doing the series reviews on the channel, so like through the area of the vault, I did get a bit of burnout from Bendis. I'm going to be completely honest. I did get burnout from Bendis. Did it stop me from enjoying his indie comics? No, not really. Another one of his that I also enjoyed was Torso. Now, Torso is another good story by Brian Michael Bendis. Also an indie story by Brian Michael Bendis. But it's also sort of like an examination of somewhat real-life events, but put into a comic. And one of the things that I really liked what he did in that comic, or in that trade paperback, was like even at the end of the story of what Brian Michael Bendis did, he provided basically some clippings, whatever else, in relation to the story that he was actually sharing in the comic. So basically giving the reader some look at history around an event of someone who is considered like a somewhat butcher of sorts, or a butcher or serial killer that was out there causing harm to other people. And this is what he managed to get up in the evidence to help sort of like create this story. And also learn a lot of how he did it. And that really made the story so much more worth it. Now, if Brian Michael Bendis was able to do more stories like Torso, and I mean more stories that are like Torso, for example, I think he'd probably be a little bit more accepted in the mainstream. Like even if, say, for example, DC or Marvel did a story. Hey, good to see you, Ed Brewer. I hope you're doing well. Not too bad myself, and I hope you're having a nice day too. On today's live stream, I've been talking a little bit of sort of like origins, or basically the origin of how the idea of the Joker's Wild came about, and you'll see that with the link that I've shared up top, which is this one right here. And this basically shares the idea of what led to the idea, or what led to the idea of, number one, the Joker's Wild website, of how it came about. Because if you have read Robin the Joker's Wild itself, you will know that in that story that it does somewhat address a political issue. And this is sort of like the side of basically like to Helium 29 addressing somewhat political issues that are seen today, whatever else. Even though I'm not fond of politics myself, and I'm not afraid to say it, in other words, I think politics really sucks. Politics is an outright joke, especially when it comes down to topics of, say, democracy, whatever else, what is considered justice, and when things get somewhat oversaturated with politics, things go to shit. And that's the truth. When it comes to even the election time of year, yeah, things start to go to shit. Yes, being uncensored here. But it's also good to learn of how even Robin, to which in the story of that Robin, to which we have the character of Tim Drake, learning how to overcome that situation. Yes, even though that the UN did get involved, and eventually the Joker does get eventually re-put away in Arkham Asylum, because he actually uses the UN to get out of Arkham Asylum, and now it's up for Tim Drake to get him back in. And it's like really interesting as to how that storytelling comes about. And sometimes there are things that you don't want to let out of the bag or out of the box, or for example, Pandora's box. There's a reason why the story of Pandora's box exists. Even though the box itself might be considered a temptation of sorts, sometimes it's best not to entertain those temptations. Yeah, you might have a look at them, but don't let it overrule you. And this is where it comes down to, like other stories that I brought up earlier, in regards to, say, for example, the multiverse, and also some of the bad storytelling from Brian Michael Bendis, as I discussed earlier, with Michael Brent, Tevye Smolka, who was here earlier too. Like, say, for example, if we were going to fix things up in regards to what Brian Michael Bendis did to try to get back, for example, the Super Sons that we know and love, okay. One thing that we never really learn about the Jor-El, to which comes and visits Kal-El, is what multiverse is he from? For example, is he from the Prime, or is he actually from the Dark Multiverse? And it's sort of like kept as a bit of a secret. Like, something like that could easily be retconned, and in the process we could still get back the John Samuel Kent we love. Such as when we get the John Samuel Kent return, we could have this John Samuel Kent actually be from one of the multiverses as well. Say maybe from the Crime Syndicate multiverse, being Earth 3, who has actually kidnapped the young John Samuel Kent. But the story we got in regards to the story we got in regards to what we learnt about the John Samuel Kent that returned, is actually his past under his old man, Ultraman, of how he was treated, but not actually how young John Samuel Kent was treated. So in that, it would leave an opening to bring back the John Samuel Kent we love. And with another one of the things that DC has presently introduced, they've also given us the Omniverse, Linearverse. With these things, of course, what was done with the Dark Knight's death metal, all that nonsense, you can easily see that it's going to be quite predictable that they're also going to bring in a dark version of them. So we're going to have the dark omniverse, the dark linear verse, and how that will work out. So it's basically going to become its next infinite crisis on many verses. And in that, it comes somewhat too predictable in the storytelling. That's not to say that they might get out some good stories in that, but they also need to be careful as to how they bring those stories out. So, on the topic of the multiverse, so we'll bring things back to the multiverse again, bring it back to the simpler, not so much the omniverse or the linear verse. What are some multiverses that actually grab your attention that you personally like, whether it's actually a dark multiverse or just a normal multiverse? Are there any multiverses that you actually like in the multiverse? Because we know in one of the multiverses there's for example, one where all the characters are sort of like robots. There's another one where all the characters are sort of like connected to the animated universe. There's another one that's connected to where all the characters, to which they would generally be all male-centered, but are changed to all female-centered. I forget the universe that one is, because it's been a long time since I've read The Multiverse by Grant Morrison. Like, what are some of your favorite multiverses that are out there? And then, of course, we've got a multiverse that connects to Gotham by Gaslight. Another one that connects to Superman Red Sun. There is a whole list that are actually there, which DC could actually play with and also do more with. Such as, what if they did like another story which connected to, say, for example, the multiverse, to which has all female predominant main characters. That would easily appeal to, say, for example, one of the groups that they're actually trying to reach, and that is the female comic book readers. What if they did something with that? But of course they're not, because they'd rather, let's gayify this character in the Prime multiverse. No, you're stupid. You could easily do that with one of the other characters in the other multiverse, to which it wouldn't affect the main Prime planet in the universe. Nice and simple. On top of that, they could even do something with maybe even the Red Sun multiverse. Like, it would make sense in connection to, say, the Superman Red Sun multiverse, because number one, it explores the world of, say, for example, communism, whatever else, in regards to that form of politics. But the Exiles, what's that? The Exiles for Marvel and DC's Justice League Incarnate explore the multiverse. Yes, they do. Not only that, if I remember, it also happened in the Generations stuff too. There were 2 comics to that Generations, to which some of the characters were brought to the future, other characters were brought to the past. And it had, I think it was Commandy, and then of course we've got things like, but I think that one was more so time-centered. So that's another thing that's also explored in the DC universe. Feel free to correct me. I think it's called Hyper Time. Because it was also shown in the Super Sons of Tomorrow run, which was also done in DC Rebirth. Like, that is another thing that they could somewhat bring into of how Hyper Time also works with the multiverse. And with exploring Hyper Time, like, how does it would be nice to have the reader have a better understanding to Hyper Time, in even including like learning the origins of Hyper Time in the DC universe. Like, if it showed up in like a certain particular issue, maybe re-summarize that in like a new issue, but still giving the reader where this first concept first appeared in DC Comics. So when they do have the time and the money, like, even if it does appear in a trade paperback or a hardcover, they can go out, they can buy it, and guess what? Cha-ching! Money in DC Comics' pocket. Yes, it might be an old story, but it's still cha-ching! Money in DC Comics' pocket. Thank you again to another one of the bots or trolls that likes to enter the stream, because you're helping to give this live stream some views. We appreciate you. And the work you're doing. Back to the topic again. Like, these are things that the audience, especially new audiences, will want to learn about. Like, how did Hyper Time come about in DC Comics? And it could easily be covered in maybe 1 or 2 issues. And then back to the story. Then after that, we could move into sort of like the simple basic things of how Hyper Time might also interact with the area of the multiverse. Because by what I've seen, only in relation to Hyper Time, is that there is some sense, like in the story of the Super Sons of Tomorrow, that, okay, with somewhat Hyper Time, when the Teen Titans that were connected to the Tim Drake that came from the New 52 into the DC Rebirth, and then caused a big drama around the area of the Super Sons, okay, where that character of that Tim Drake ended in an area of Hyper Time because he was trying to help with something, and in somewhat also trying to throw a bit of the blame onto a young John Samuel Kent for something that he had no actual control over. And it was like a solar flare of sorts that was being released from his body. Well, who's not to say that there's another time to which that particular solar flare might actually be needed in the future? So now we've got this Tim Drake that's now called his name Savior, now has to return and give back that solar flare to young John Samuel Kent, because now he's realized he's made a mistake. But he comes back and returns it to him at a future date. So maybe when the Super Sons are together, and what he does there sort of like sets the path up for, say, Tim Drake and Damian's relationship to improve a little bit more. Yeah, even though this is a different Tim Drake from a different multiverse, but it might also set things up. Like in the present universe, with Tim Drake and Damian Wayne getting along a little bit better. Now, that's not to say that, for example, there have actually been some times to which they have had some good interactions. The Robin run is one thing that I can definitely recommend, especially when you move on to the Red Robin series. That I personally enjoyed. I enjoyed reading all 4 volumes. I'd love to see more Red Robin come out. Don't make Tim Drake this Eternal Robin. I think that's the most stupid idea ever, because it shows not only the lack of ideas, but also the lack of creativity. And in regards to lack of creativity, especially from DC Comics, like playing with Tim Drake to make him, I don't know, a said LGBTIQ alphabet character. Yeah, okay. Maybe if this Tim Drake is from the multiverse, or one of the multiverses, yeah, okay. With that particular one, but with the main one, no, don't make him this said character. Thank you to the next said bot in the messages. We appreciate you helping to bring up the views. You are appreciated. And with it being connected to the multiverse once again, so now we have this Batman actually communicating with another Tim Drake, but of another multiverse. Okay, maybe this eternal Tim Drake that they want could actually be from another multiverse. Right? And I'd be fine with that idea if they did it that way. But the way they're sort of like pushing it now in the main, it doesn't quite work with the character. It doesn't really give the character any meaning. It just says that he's just become a prop piece. And that's the last thing you want, a prop piece that says, oh, Tim Drake's the best Robin. Let's now slap this glue on him and make him eternal. Yeah, if I wanted bloody that, I would go buy myself a bloody figure of Tim Drake, put him up on my bookshelf. There we go. There's a Eternal Robin. That's all it becomes. Nothing but a new figure, but with an old idea. That's all it becomes. So how could they change the character up with Tim Drake? Well, one idea that Tinian brought up in his run of Detective Comics is to have Tim Drake go to university. Now, that all changed when Brian Michael Bendis, again, once came in and brought in the Young Justice with Tim Drake. And, of course, he changed the character's name to Drake. Very terrible, and many of us dislike that. Even for myself, who is not a big Tim Drake fan, but I do enjoy good Tim Drake stories, not even I liked it. I even disliked what Bendis did with the character of Sideways. Now, Sideways is another character that I do also address on The Joker's Wild. Now, the character of Sideways is also connected to Dan Didio. He ended up falling into Bendis's lap only for a little while too. Not to stay there very long, but it was just come and gone. Was a great, I think it was 15, almost 16 issues in regards to the character. Yeah, I understand that there are some people who didn't enjoy who was writing on the character. I did personally enjoy it. So in that, Dan Didio can also deliver some good story titles, especially when his name is behind it. Another example is Metal Men. On England Teens channel, he actually recommended the Metal Men storyline, to which he was actually working on. And because of that, I also picked up the trade paperback for it. And eventually, in time, I will end up reading that series that he did in that time period. Now, this is where, like for some things, Didio is somewhat better suited to writing stories instead of being a head at DC Comics. Yes, he's gone now. That's neither here or there. Like, he did better in his storytelling than what he did running DC Comics. And if he had have stuck to that, there would probably be a little bit more sympathy towards him. If he didn't have that dreaded hit list, that's another thing too. We can't forget that dreaded hit list that he has, which works on the destruction of said characters. Nightwing being one of them, and yes, Nightwing ended up getting a rope kick in the ass, along with many other things. We can't forget the Rick Grayson incident, can we? It took Dan Jurgens to help save that storyline. Literally taking Dan Jurgens to save that storyline. And eventually bringing Dick Grayson back to being Nightwing again. And my goodness, it was freaking terrible what happened. There were some great stories before he became Rick Grayson. And I enjoy like some of the earlier stuff, to which we had Dick Grayson and Damian Wayne together. I thought that was great, like around the first story arc. Then there was another story before Dick Grayson was changed to Rick Grayson. And in that we had, say for example, Dick Grayson doing somewhat like a Game of Death type story. And in this Game of Death type story, before it moved on to the next story, to which we had Damian Wayne with Dick Grayson and Roy Harper. And that was another good story too. They were great. I absolutely enjoyed that. Then there was the one involving the judge before that. I think it was called Unbreakable or something like that. And it had to do with a character to which Dick Grayson and Batman were trying to capture in their early years. And because of that, they were unable to get the character because he'd slipped away, because they were never able to solve that particular case. So in that, we have like a Dick Grayson solving a cold case. That is good storytelling. I mean it. That was good storytelling. Did it involve the multiverse? No, but it was good storytelling. But it was also enjoyable storytelling. Now, when we start to move into, say, for example, Tom the One Trick Pony Taylor, okay, some of his stories are alright-ish at most. Some of the stories are slightly better than what he's doing in Son of Kal-El. Not 100% better, but somewhat okay than what it was before. I will say, though, that what was done sort of like with Tom Taylor giving, what was it, Dick Grayson Alfred's money was an interesting concept, but Was it a strong concept? No. Another thing too with Tom Taylor's storytelling is that sometimes he fails to give the reader areas such as when we are in the area of Bloodhaven, where exactly are we? Yes, we got to see a pizza shop, but where exactly is that pizza shop? Is it in downtown Bloodhaven? Is it in Upper Bloodhaven? Where the hell is it? Right, and this sort of tells the difference between, or shows the difference between good storytelling and bad storytelling. Like in some cases with Brian Michael Bendis, yes, there were times where the editors did their work and other times where they didn't. For example, The Phantom Zone. Oh, gosh, that was a terrible story. Where we had the Earth go into the Phantom Zone. Ugh. And it involved the help of Zod and I think it was Adam Strange helping to get the Earth out of the Phantom Zone. Okay, that was a somewhat clever story concept. I'll give it that. It was a clever story idea. But overall, this story wasn't completely enjoyed. Because of the way the story of the Phantom Earth also focused around the character of Rogol Zar, and of course we had Rogol Zar kill a somewhat Kryptonian, or a person that he saw as Kryptonian, Nuclear Man, to which we no longer see again in the comics. Absolutely crazy. And I mean it, it's absolutely crazy. And by the way, that character never returned. He was just killed off and left behind. No idea how Nuclear Man ended up in the Phantom Zone in the first place, considering in the movies he died by practically a nuclear smokestack. So work that one out. Where was the nuclear smokestack for the Phantom Zone? Oh, that's right, there was none. Gosh, absolutely terrible. Well, who else is still about here? And what are some origins, for example, that you personally enjoy in comics? Like, what are some story origins that you enjoy? Because using this episode to sort of bring to discuss the origin of how the Joker's World website came about to eventually the first live stream, which happened a while ago. What are some of your favorite origin stories? Even if it does involve a character that's connected to the multiverse and their origin story. Alright. If there's going to be no response, well, I might prepare to get close to ending the live stream. But I want to give a big thanks to all those who made it to this live stream, as it was really nice to talk about the origin of how the Joker's World came about. And if you have actually read the Joker's Wild, the Robin by Chuck Dixon, the story of the Joker's World, please let me know in the comment section after this live stream is over. What were your favorite things about it? What were the things that you didn't enjoy about it? I would love to hear from you in regards to this. Of course, we've got another bot back in the stream again. Thank you for showing up, as your views mean a lot to the channel. Until then, we'll finish off with the joke's on you, Joker by the Super Sons. Alright, it looks like we got a bit of a response before ending the stream. So, we've got Spider-Man's origin story, Batman's origin story, as supervisors, or just great in the multiverse. Superman's origin story. I definitely agree with you, Michael Brent. They are awesome stories. They really are. I even love the origins of the Super Sons, our Super Sons in the DC Rebirth. So we can't forget that one for the Super Sons readers like ourselves. Superman's origin story has come a long way from when it first started. Same with Batman's, Spider-Man's as well. A lot of people who like Spider-Man, there's a certain thing that they don't like that has been done in Spider-Man's story, and that is, I know I'm not the only one probably thinking of it, it's the One More Day story. Right, and the origin of when that started. Yes, a lot of people don't really like that, do they? My goodness. The harm that Dan Slott has done to Spider-Man story readers, yeah. Some are very unforgiving, I must admit. Where you do get others where they are somewhat forgiving. That's not to say that, okay, some stories like that might bring out some other good stories out of it. Others, they do bring some good stories around that. Then there's another a Spider-Man one, which involves Spider-Man and his daughter May Parker. I think it is. Oh, what was that one? Renew Your Vows. Spider-Man Renew Your Vows. I think it is. Feel free to correct me in the text. Any other stories that you might happen to enjoy, Michael Brent? Well, actually, here's one. Another origin story. How about some manga or anime-oriented stories? Like, what are some characters that are in manga or anime that you might enjoy their origin stories? Seeing on the joke as well, I do actually address the topic of manga as well. What are some manga or anime characters to which you enjoy their origin stories? If I were to cover maybe some of my manga characters that I enjoy, I'd have to say maybe Suna Sawada from Reborn. I like his origin story. of how he starts. Oh yes, we can't forget My Hero Academia, can we? Izuku Midoriya. High School D&D, Naruto. Yep, Naruto's origin story, Sailor Moon's origin story. Goku, Luffy, and Natsu. Now, Natsu, if I remember, is from Fairy Tail. Luffy is from One Piece. I've not read One Piece, but you know what? If you are out there and you love One Piece, I'm glad you enjoy it. Maybe let me know one of your favorite stories that are in One Piece. Maybe let me know the manga volume it's in. So should I decide to pick it up, at least I know where it is. Another origin story that I sort of enjoy is connected to Rin and Yukio Okamura of Blue Exorcist. I do enjoy that story, and that's a story by Kazu Kato. I also like Full Metal Alchemist. I enjoyed learning about the origin story as to how things came to be in what happened in Full Metal Alchemist between those brothers. Now, that was really interesting with Edward and Alphonse, Alric. That was pretty good. Oh, what's another one that I enjoy? Oh, Shinra. We can't forget Shinra from Fire Force. That's a good idea, Michael Brent. Video game characters. Okay. Video game characters and their origins. Now, this is a good topic. I like this topic. Video game characters like Kid Icarus, Shuki from Xenoblade Chronicles, Link from Legends of Zelda, and Sora from Kingdom Hearts. Okay. In regards to video games that I've come to enjoy, I really like a lot of the early Assassin's Creed video games, more so than the later video games. So, in other words, like learning about characters such as Altair, learning about his origins, learning about Ezio's origins. So, two completely different characters from two completely different parts of the world. One from the Middle East, the other one from Italy. That was really good. Then after that, sort of like moving into some of the other characters that you meet along the way, such as Edward Kenway from Assassin's Creed 4, which also played somewhat as an origin story, which led into Haytham Kenway, who you learn is a Templar, but his son becomes an assassin. So it's very interesting storytelling in regards to that. But it's sad that it ended off with Desmond, the series. Other characters in video games. Now, that's a really good topic. I have played Naruto and the video game, or some of the video games around him. Jump Force could live or could go with or without. Shinobi Strikers, not really fond of the game. I did buy the game itself. It's not the best of games, but it is a good game. Another game I think has somewhat an interesting origin story is Origami. because you learn about that character. We can't forget Master Chief from Halo. That's another character. So we can't forget Master Chief, as to how he even ended up getting Cortana. Yes, Samus from Metroid, and Cloud from Final Fantasy, most definitely. Oh, we can't forget Noctis from Final Fantasy 15. Oh my goodness. A game that came out unfinished, but it's got it does have some interesting DLC around, like some of the other characters, such as Gladiolus, Ignis, what's his name? Was it? No, not Noctis. What was his name? Then there's also Arden, which you learn about his origin story. And I still got to finish that off, and it's a very interesting story of what I've played of it so far. It is sad that the game did come out when it did, or the DLC came out later when it did. It did have some fun things that went with it, such as when it had the Assassin's Creed DLC, to which they also had connect with the Assassin's Creed Origins. Not the best of games, but I do like that you get the block with your character in it. That's about the only thing I sort of enjoyed with that. It doesn't beat the earlier Assassin's Creed stuff. And the story, in its own way, will always remain linear, beginning to end. And even with this new stuff, it doesn't really do anything to affect the future of the game or the storytelling. So, yeah. Other gaming characters. Well, I know I've not played this series, but I'd have to say Resident Evil, or Residential Evil. I think that has some interesting storytelling too, of what I've seen in game playthroughs, and how some of that comes about. My goodness, what are some other origins that yes, that's something that I've sort of read and enjoyed, and also watched the anime of. Okay, how about the origin of Saitama, of how he became the One Punch Man? All right, there's another one. And Saitama himself already has a video game called One Punch Man, to which you can interact and play. Then there's Mob Psycho. That actually has its own video game as well, but it's more also a mobile video game. Yep, Naofumi. Yep, from Shield Hero Rising. Ruby Rose from Mob Psycho, or Shigeo from Mob Psycho. Can't forget Shinky. From Eden Zero. Can't forget Eden Zero. That one's origins. What about other character origins? I wonder if I've got any here. Yes. There's Yuji Itadori. His origin story from Jujutsu Kaisen. How about we move into some independent stories? Outside of mainstream comics, some of the independent stories, Ninjak, that's a character that I enjoy. Peter Stanchek from Valiant. So 2 characters from Valiant that I personally enjoy. We've, of course, got the origins of... Oh, we can't forget Erratic through AWA with Oliver, his origin story, and I really hope that soon that we get to see a sequel to the first of Erratic, because I'd really love to see that. We can't forget Assassination Classroom because of Koro Sensei and many of the amazing characters that are in that story. Even the My Hero Academia Vigilantes origin characters, even Koichi's character, I think is actually pretty good, and learning about his origin. Oh, what else? The Street Fighter characters. We can't forget the Street Fighter characters. Ooh, okay. On the topic of Street Fighter characters, name 2 or 3 Street Fighter characters that you really enjoy. One of mine would have to be Ryu and Ken. I think they're sort of like perfect rivals, but as well as friends for each other. And if I were to name a third, I'd have to choose a villain of one that somewhat complements their fighting style. Now, it would have to be either M. Bison or not Vega. Who am I thinking of? Sagat. Sagat is one of the characters that I like, who is also a villain, and he also develops his own, basically his own version of the Shuriken, but it's called the Tiger Uppercut. All right, we've got the Assassination Classroom, yep. Dimensional Neptunia, Sword Art Online, Overlord, No Game, No Life characters, yep. That's another one. Oh. All right. What else? We can't forget some of Matt Kint's characters. Crimson Flower, her origins. Department of Truth, care of Tinian. We can't forget Ed Brubaker, and a number of people enjoy his stuff. Oh, yes. Kirkman's Firepower. That story origin. That was fantastic. Dr. Tomorrow, another character I like in Valiant, and also The Visitor in Valiant, another character whose origin I quite like. Can't forget Thorfinn, his character from Vinland Saga. The Bio Booster. So the Guyver Origins, that's another origin story which is actually quite good. But I'd like to see Viz bring out all of the volumes in a box set for this. But in the way I managed to get a hold of it, I don't like how the volumes are done, and I'd like them to be like very similar to the Crying Freeman volumes. Crying Freeman, the character of who plays Crying Freeman, Yo. His origins are interesting. We can't forget Shaman King. That's another one. Somewhat a little bit closer to present day, the Pretty Boy Detectives Club. Also, the origin of Run High School Host Club and the main character that's in that, and what you learn about her, but also around her friends as well. So, yeah, quite a bit in the manga genre, manga and anime genre, which have some good origin stories. My goodness, including video games. We might want to include the Persona franchise because of some of their origin stories. Oh, we can't forget Star Wars before it was sold over to Disney. We can't forget the origins story of Luke Skywalker, or Han Solo, or Leia Skywalker. That's another one. That's another good origin story. Then we learn the origin story behind their old man, Anakin. Oh, yes, I forgot about Watch Dogs. Another story by Ubisoft. I enjoyed the first one more so than the second one. I have played Legion, or the latest one, but it just really loses me. Like, I really haven't gone back to play it. So, but in the first one, you cover the character of someone by the name of Pierce. In the second one, what was his name? I forget his name. It's that good a game. That's so much a good game. Yeah, it can't be that good a game. Even Watch Dogs Legion is totally unforgettable. Totally forgettable. I mean, not unforgettable, but forgettable. Oh, what else? Oh, how about movies with character origins? If you're still there, Brent, what about movies that you enjoy with good character origins? Which might even link into TV series that might have good character origins. Connor McLeod from Highlander? Yes. There's a good character origin. And we can't forget Ramirez. Then there was the Highlander series, which brought in Duncan MacLeod. And that had like a good list of immortals that were in that run. But not just the immortals, but you also had the characters of the Watchers. And I think that's one good thing about the Highlander series is that it did introduce the Watchers, who were meant to watch and observe, but not intervene, until one of their own went rogue and caused harm to some immortals, thinking that they were doing what they were doing for the greater good. So that was very interesting. Ninja Scroll, I think that had a good origin around Jubei Kibagami. And then there's Cyber City Oedo 808 and a list of others stories in there which you could name. Back into some live action stories that have had some good origins. Ooh. Ooh, what more? Okay. Oh, actually, what about some Bendis characters that have had some good origin stories? Hey, as much as I dislike his DC and Marvel, I understand some people enjoy his Spider-Man, which links to the creation of Miles Morales. I read through the Miles Morales run, but I didn't really enjoy it that much. Sora, yep, that was brought up earlier too, in the video game Origins. So sort of like falling back into more comic book Origins. Sonic the Hedgehog, yeah, that character actually has a video game origin beginning before it ended up becoming, say, comic to eventually a movie. So that's really interesting. Ooh. I think Jinx is an interesting character that Ryan Michael Bendis has done. Then there's Goldfish, the character of Goldfish. Again, it's somewhat separate. Still in the Jinx World universe, but somewhat separate. Then there's his exploration of the Mafia. Now, that wasn't in so much the Powers run, but it was in like another one of the titles that he works on. Oh, all right. Going to a list of Bendis titles. Brian Michael Bendis has also worked on Spawn. To those who don't know, he has actually worked on Spawn. To which I wouldn't mind getting a hold of those titles that he has worked on on Spawn. All right, just looking at some of the things here of some of the things that he's worked on. For some of this, he's done pencils for, others he's done script for. So we've got something called The Real Thing, something I've not checked out, connected to the Negative Burn series. Goldfish, which is some noir. Of course, the Powers series. Jinx. Jinx Special. All right. Have we got something a little bit more easier? Comic Book Archive. This might help. Okay, apart from Marvels, I'm looking for things that he's worked on indie-wise. There's Chinks. He's also worked on True Believers, according to this. This was Inca Lesser Rising. As writer, all right. Oh, speaking of Sonic the Hedgehog, he's already know about that. Michael Brent, that he's getting a second movie. All right. I think things are starting to get towards the end of the broadcast, or the end of the this at DC. Oh yes, Cover. We can't forget the story of Cover, which is meant to be getting a volume 2. Here we go. Pearl. There we go. Oh, that was the series I was thinking of. United States versus Murder Inc. That's what I was thinking of. I knew it was in there, and it was a story linking to like the mafia. Thank you. The official Brian Michael Bendis website. We've got Scarlet, of course. He's worked on something called The Realm with Patrick Zercher, to which he did art on. So that might be worth checking out. Fire. Oh, yes, I remember Fire. Here we go. Captain Planet, Freakazoid, Gargoyles. Yeah, oh, I almost forgot about Gargoyles. That was actually an interesting story. Thank you for reminding me, Michael Brent. Mighty Max, Ruby Rose, getting a live action. That might be interesting. All right, some other things that he's worked on. He's Jinx through Icon. Oh, Sam and Twitch. Now, this is something else of Brian Michael Bendis that I'd also like to collect too. His Sam and Twitch collection, which is also Housespawn. another thing that I'd like to collect that he's worked on, especially some of his indie works, because I find I get more out of his indie stuff than what I do out of his mainstream stuff. We've got a story here called Lily, which I've never heard of. And oh, that looks like it might be in a definitive collection. Brian Michael Bendis, which consists of all three. There's no other indie titles here, is there, on his list? There is one which I wouldn't mind getting a hold of, but he's got some art by Mark Bagley, which is called Brilliant. He's also worked on Richard Castle's Deadly Storm, and he also did that with Callie Pseudoconic, which some people do and don't like. Scarlet is actually something else of his that I have actually read and reviewed. Takio is another one that I am going to need to pick up of his. I'm sorry, Patricia Walters, but I've already got some of my dreams already. But thank you for trolling the text. We do appreciate you. So that's pretty much all of his indie stuff that he has covered that I'd definitely like to check out. What about some other indie writers? Now, one new origin story which I'll be learning about soon will be a character called The Darkness, which is through Image Comics. Another is Witchblade, to which, if I remember, I believe Witchblade also had a live-action series. And I think I caught a couple of those episodes when it sort of like first came on. At the time, I didn't quite understand it, so I sort of left it. And it's nice to sort of like come back to the series later on. Moon Knight is another character that I also like. I've been enjoying Jed MacKay's storytelling on Moon Knight presently, and it's been really good. Radiant Black, the beginning of the story was okay, but I feel like I'm starting to fall off with the story, so I might come back to it later on. Moving into Vertigo, the story of Books of Magic around the character of Timothy Hunter. Now, that's one character that I do quite like in the Vertigo. Oh, we can't forget Shazam and their origin story. All right. Well, looking at the time, it must be time to begin to end the stream. Thanks, Michael Brent, for dropping over. You're always welcome. And if you'd like to maybe join in an actual live stream, Yeah, Daredevil, Moon Knight, the Sentry, like to be able to join an actual live stream and talk. The invitation is for you. If you'd be interested, I know you already follow me on Twitter anyway, but so the Super Sons are going to. Oh, we should now be able to finish off this live stream. So, well, I'll end with what we begun with in regards to the Joker's Wild, with the intro, using it as the exit. And thank you so much to everyone who made it to the live stream. It's now around lunchtime here, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And I definitely look forward to doing another Joker's Wild live stream in the future.